When I was in high school, my parents forced me to make cheat sheets for wealthy students and then abandoned me after I collapsed from exhaustion. Now 5 years later, my estranged mother was caught burning evidence in a parking lot, and she's desperately pleading with me and my siblings not to testify against her in a major fraud investigation. My parents took immense pride in operating a private tutoring establishment for exceptionally bright children. However, they rarely engaged in any actual instruction. The bulk of the teaching responsibilities fell upon me and my elder sister, Madison. For my 7th birthday, instead of a celebration, my 13-year-old sister taught me how to develop lesson plans and assess assignments. By this point, Madison was dedicating so much effort that she only attended her own school 2 days a week. The principal initially objected, but upon learning she was contributing to the education of future leaders, he allowed it to continue. Together, Madison and I committed 50 hours weekly. As I lacked the experience for proper instruction, I primarily observed Madison, diligently absorbing every teaching method. Meanwhile, our parents performed minimal duties, meeting affluent families, signing enrollment documents, and their preferred pastime, boasting about cultivating young intellects. They asserted the center barely generated profit, yet they had inherited millions from my grandfather. A mere 2% was allocated to educational resources, with the remainder funding their opulent lifestyle. Designer attire, spontaneous European excursions, a personal home theater. It astonished me that other parents never questioned why events were never hosted at our residence, or why my mother possessed 3 luxury vehicles while claiming the business was struggling. Whenever I attempted to rest, they would impose a penalty, not physically, but if I slept an additional 30 minutes or collapsed from sheer exhaustion, my mother would record me. "If only you could witness how pathetic you appear right now," she would remark, sometimes even spitting on me. My father adopted a more lenient approach, but exclusively with Madison. When she attempted to console me, he would pull her away, admonishing, "Do not reward your sister's idleness and self-centeredness." Eventually, I comprehended their expectations and complied without complaint. During our peak season, they would actually prepare our preferred meals, and Madison could once again show me kindness. On my 10th birthday, I received a day off, spent in the home theater with cheesecake, and slept for 18 hours. Madison gently kissed my forehead and covered me with a blanket. When I awoke feeling disoriented and utterly depleted, I understood that complaining would invite punishment, so I simply ceased. I attended school normally, slept like a typical child. My meals consisted of peanut butter sandwiches and Hot Pockets, while Madison received gourmet cuisine. By the age of 16, Madison was intellectually brilliant but physically diminished. 30 pounds underweight, with perpetual under-eye circles and constant weeping. Yet, all that mattered was maintaining the center's operation. When I turned 12, they concluded I was a burden, tarnishing the family reputation, and dispatched me to live with my uncle. I waited until they departed to weep in his embrace, so undernourished that I collapsed after 10 minutes. What I was unaware of was that my uncle had been investigating a more sinister matter, the gifted children at the center. They were consistently achieving impossibly high scores on standardized examinations, not due to superior instruction, but because my parents had been selling answer keys to affluent families for years. But here is what sent shivers down my spine. When I discovered his files, Madison had uncovered the scheme months prior. The true reason for her constant tears was not exhaustion. It was because she had been compelled to deliver the answer keys to families, knowing she was assisting wealthy children in cheating their way into elite institutions, displacing honest students. The night before I was sent away, she had concealed a flash drive in my suitcase containing comprehensive evidence. The accompanying note read, "They are not sending you away because you are indolent. You are the sole witness they cannot manipulate." My uncle had 1 week to expose them before Madison reached her 18th birthday, the day they intended to make her a legal accomplice in their transgressions. My uncle's hands trembled as he displayed the flash drive's contents on his laptop. Spreadsheets filled with test dates, answer keys, and payment records scrolled across the display. Each entry included a student's name, their parents' payment amount, and Madison's initials, confirming delivery. Some families paid up to $50,000 per examination. "I have been tracking this for months," my uncle stated, closing the laptop, "but I required concrete proof. Madison risked everything to get this to you." I gazed at the screen, my stomach churning. All those nights Madison cried herself to sleep suddenly made perfect sense. She was not merely exhausted from teaching, she was ensnared in our parents' criminal enterprise. My uncle retrieved his phone and began making calls. I overheard him canceling appointments, reorganizing his schedule. Within an hour, he had cleared his entire week. "We have 7 days before your sister turns 18, he declared. "Once she is legally an adult, They can force her into full partnership. She will be criminally liable for everything. That night sleep eluded me. I kept recalling Madison's expression when my father pulled her away from comforting me, the way her hands trembled when she covered me with that blanket on my birthday. She had been safeguarding me, even while submerged in their machinations. The next morning my uncle roused me early. "We need to approach this intelligently," he advised, spreading papers across his kitchen table. "Your parents possess connections with every affluent family in the district. If we approach the wrong individual, they will be immediately alerted." I scrutinized the payment records. Some names I recognized. Children from the tutoring center who consistently achieved perfect test scores but could barely complete basic assignments in class. "What about the families who did not pay?" I inquired. "The ones whose children lost opportunities to cheaters?" My uncle's eyes brightened. "That is brilliant. They would have every motive to assist us." We spent the day compiling a list of families whose children had been rejected from elite schools despite strong applications. My uncle made discreet calls, gauging who might be sympathetic. Most were too apprehensive of my parents' influence, but 3 families consented to meet that evening. My phone vibrated. It was my mother's number. I allowed it to go to voicemail. "Sweetheart, we heard you are not feeling well at your uncle's. Your father and I are concerned. Call us back." Her voice sounded sweet, solicitous, the same tone she used with wealthy parents. My uncle and I exchanged glances. They suspected something was amiss. The following day we met the first family at a coffee shop. Their daughter had impeccable grades but mysteriously failed her entrance examination to the academy. When we presented evidence that other students had received answer keys, the mother's face paled. "We suspected something," she admitted. "But your parents are so well connected, we did not dare investigate." By the 3rd day, we had assembled 5 families willing to confront my parents. But that afternoon everything changed. Madison telephoned my uncle's phone, sobbing. "They know," she gasped between tears. "They discovered the flash drive. They are accelerating everything. The partnership papers they are making me sign tomorrow." My uncle seized his keys. "We are coming to retrieve you." "No." Madison's voice cracked. "They will simply send me back. I am still a minor. But listen, they are holding an emergency meeting tonight with all the paying families, 8 o'clock at the center. They are going to destroy all the evidence." The line went dead. My uncle attempted to call back, but it went straight to voicemail. "We need those families now," he stated, already dialing numbers. Within 2 hours we had gathered our group. 5 families whose children had been deprived of opportunities. My uncle explained the situation, and their anger transformed into resolve. "We will manage the meeting," one father declared. "You concentrate on getting Madison to safety." But I understood my parents better than anyone. "They will not let her out of their sight," I asserted. "Not until she signs those papers." That evening we parked outside the tutoring center. Luxury automobiles filled the lot, belonging to all the families who had purchased their children's success. Through the windows I could discern my parents addressing the assembly, Madison standing beside them like a mere prop. "Stay in the car," my uncle instructed. I shook my head. "Madison needs to see me. She needs to know she is not alone." We entered through the side door. The main room buzzed with nervous energy. Parents clutched folders, likely containing their payment records. My mother stood at the front, her designer suit impeccable, selling them a fabricated narrative. "A disgruntled former employee has been disseminating falsehoods," she stated smoothly. "But we have handled it. All records have been secured, and we are implementing new security measures." Then she saw me. Her face flickered with surprise, then calculation, then that practiced smile. "Oh, sweetheart, you are here." She rushed over, arms outstretched. "We have been so concerned. Your uncle said you were unwell." Every parent in the room turned to stare. I felt their gazes piercing me, recognizing me as the younger daughter who used to grade their children's work. My mother's grip on my shoulders was firm, a warning. "I am fine," I stated loudly. "Just wanted to see Madison." My sister's eyes met mine across the room. She appeared smaller than ever, swallowed by a blazer that once fit. My father kept one hand on her shoulder, holding her in place. "Of course," my mother said, her nails digging into my skin. "Family should remain united during challenging times." That is when the door burst open. The 5 families we had contacted stormed in, their faces flushed with righteous indignation. The father who had spoken earlier pointed directly at my parents. "We know about the answer keys," he announced. "We know you have been selling test answers while our children suffered." The room erupted. Paying parents leaped up, some attempting to depart, others shouting denials. My mother's facade finally crumbled, revealing the cold calculation beneath. "You have no proof," she retorted. "Actually, we do." I retrieved my phone, displaying screenshots from the flash drive. Every transaction, every test, every family who paid to cheat. My father released Madison and stepped forward. "You ungrateful little..." "Stop." Madison's voice cut through the pandemonium. She looked fragile but resolute. "I am done being your accomplice." She reached into her blazer and produced a thick folder. "These are copies of every answer key sold in the past 3 years, every payment received, every student who cheated their way into schools they did not earn." The paying parents scrambled for the exits, but the honest families obstructed their path. Someone called out that they had already contacted the school board. Another mentioned legal representation. My mother longed for Madison's folder, but my uncle stepped between them. "Do not even consider it. She is our daughter," my mother shrieked, her composure completely shattered. "She has no right." "I am 17, Madison stated quietly. "In 5 days I will be 18, and the first thing I am doing is testifying about everything you made me do." My father's face turned purple. "We provided you with everything. The finest education, opportunities. You gave me trauma," Madison retorted. "You transformed me into a criminal before I could even drive." The meeting devolved into utter chaos. Parents shouted accusations, phones rang incessantly, and through it all my parents tried desperately to maintain control. They threatened, pleaded, even offered refunds, but it was too late. One of the honest mothers approached Madison and me. "We will ensure you are both protected," she promised. "What your parents did to you is abuse, plain and simple." My uncle kept us close as the situation unfolded. Within an hour, several families had contacted legal counsel, and the paying parents departed, likely hoping to minimize their involvement. My parents found themselves surrounded by enraged families demanding justice. "This is not over," my mother hissed at me as one father cornered her with questions. "You have destroyed everything we built." "No," I countered, discovering a strength I did not know I possessed. "You destroyed it the moment you decided to exploit your own children as instruments for fraud." Madison grasped my hand, squeezing tightly. For the first time in years, she resembled my older sister again. Protective, caring, present. The center slowly emptied as families left to contact authorities and schools. My parents remained, frantically making phone calls to lawyers. Their empire was crumbling and they knew it. My uncle drove us to his house in silence. Madison curled up in the back seat, exhausted but finally liberated. As we pulled into his driveway, she spoke. "Thank you," she whispered, "for retaining the flash drive, for not abandoning me." "You saved yourself," I replied. "You extracted the evidence." She smiled weakly. "I knew they would eventually send you away. You were becoming too old, too perceptive. But I also knew you would be the only one who could assist me." Inside, my uncle prepared hot chocolate while Madison and I sat on his couch. For the first time in years, we could simply be sisters. No lesson plans, no answer keys, no parents pulling us apart. "What happens now?" I inquired. "Now," my uncle said, joining us, "we ensure you are both safe and supported. The families we contacted will help. Your parents will face consequences for their actions." Madison leaned against me, and I felt her finally relax. The week was not over. She still had 5 days until her 18th birthday. But the secret was out, the evidence disseminated. Our parents could no longer use her as their pawn. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I contemplated all the students who had been cheated, all the honest families who had suffered. Justice was approaching, slow but inevitable. And Madison and I, we were finally free to be the children we never had the chance to be. The next morning brought a deluge of calls. Schools initiating investigations, lawyers offering representation, even some paying parents attempting to negotiate deals. My uncle managed them all, shielding us from the chaos we had unleashed. Madison spent the day sleeping, consuming proper meals, and occasionally weeping, but these were now tears of relief, not despair. I remained close, compensating for all the times my father had pulled her away from comforting me. "I am sorry," she suddenly stated over lunch, "for all the times I could not protect you." "You protected me more than you realize," I responded. "Every lesson you imparted, every moment you displayed kindness when they were not looking, that sustained me." She smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen from her in years. "We are going to be all right, are we not?" I nodded. "We are going to be better than all right." The following morning, my uncle's phone rang before dawn. Madison jolted awake on the couch, her body tensing at the sound. Years of conditioning had trained her to anticipate punishment at any unexpected noise. "It is okay," I whispered, but my own heart raced as my uncle answered. His face darkened as he listened. I see. Yes, we will be careful. Thank you for the warning. He hung up and turned to us. That was Mrs. Chun, one of the families we met with. Your parents appeared at her house at midnight, demanding she return any documents we gave her. Madison's face went pale. They are attempting to intimidate everyone into silence. Mrs. Chun did not back down, my uncle noted. But 2 other families called her this morning. They are frightened. Your parents threatened to ruin their businesses if they cooperated with us. I felt my stomach drop. Of course, our parents would not surrender easily. They had constructed their empire on manipulation and control. Why would they cease now? Madison stood, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. We need to act faster. Every hour we delay grants them more time to conceal their tracks. My uncle nodded. The school board meeting is in 4 days. If we can present evidence there, they will destroy everything before then. Madison interrupted. I know where they keep the master files, not just payment records but the actual test papers, the contact lists, everything. It is in a safe at the center. Can you access it? My uncle inquired. Madison shook her head. They altered the combination after they discovered the flash drive. But, she paused, contemplating, there is someone who might assist us, Mrs. Rodriguez. She cleans the center 3 nights a week. She has witnessed things. I recalled Mrs. Rodriguez, a quiet woman who always appeared weary, working late while we tutored. My mother barely acknowledged her existence, which might work in our favor. I have her number, Madison stated. She gave it to me once when Mom made her stay until 2 a.m. and did not arrange transportation. My uncle looked uncertain. Can we trust her? She has a daughter, I offered, remembering a bright girl who aspired to be a doctor. She applied to the academy last year but was not accepted. Madison's eyes widened. Of course. Rosa Rodriguez. She had perfect grades, amazing recommendations, but she failed the entrance exam. We exchanged glances. Another family victimized by my parents' scheme. Madison made the call, speaking quietly in Spanish. Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to meet us at a park that afternoon, away from any location my parents might monitor. While we waited, my uncle's phone buzzed constantly. Some families wished to help but were afraid. Others had already been visited by my parents or their lawyer. The intimidation campaign was in full swing. We need more than just evidence, my uncle declared. We need witnesses willing to speak up. The students, I suddenly suggested. The ones who purchased the answers. Some of them must feel guilty. Madison laughed bitterly. You would be surprised. Most of them convinced themselves they deserved those spots, that they would have passed anyway. But I remembered something. What about Kevin Liu? He used to cry after every test. His parents forced him into it. Madison's expression softened. Kevin. He was one of the few who genuinely desired to learn. His parents paid for answers, but he would stay after, asking me to teach him the material anyway. Would he speak? My uncle asked. Perhaps, Madison replied, if we could reach him without his parents' knowledge. That afternoon, Mrs. Rodriguez met us at the park. She appeared nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. I know what your parents do, she stated quietly. I have known for years, but I needed the job. My husband is disabled and we have 3 children. We are not judging you, my uncle assured her. We require your assistance. Mrs. Rodriguez produced a small notebook. I record things. Dates, times, conversations I overhear. I thought perhaps someday. She trailed off. Madison leaned forward. Mrs. Rodriguez, your daughter Rosa, she studied so diligently. The woman's voice cracked. Every night until her eyes hurt. She knew that test was her only opportunity for a better life. When she failed, she blamed herself, said she was not intelligent enough. She was intelligent enough, I asserted. Other children just possessed the answers. Mrs. Rodriguez's face hardened. I know. I witnessed the envelopes, the cash. Your parents counting money while my Rosa cried herself to sleep. Will you help us? Madison inquired. Mrs. Rodriguez nodded slowly. The safe combination. Your mother believes I do not pay attention, but I have seen her open it many times. She never alters it because she thinks everyone beneath her is too foolish to recall numbers. She wrote down 6 digits. But be cautious. They installed new cameras after the meeting last night. Cameras? My uncle frowned. Hidden ones. They are paranoid now. They know someone has evidence. We thanked Mrs. Rodriguez and began planning. Gaining entry to the center would be hazardous, but we needed those master files. Without them, my parents could claim the flash drive evidence was fabricated. That evening, Madison contacted Kevin Liu through an old tutoring application. He agreed to meet us the next day at a library across town. Meanwhile, my uncle reached out to more families, building a network of those willing to take a stand. But my parents were not idle. That night, a black car parked outside my uncle's house. We observed through the curtains as someone sat there for hours, engine running. "They are monitoring us," Madison whispered. My uncle called the police, but the car departed before they arrived. The message was unmistakable. We were under surveillance. The next morning, we took elaborate precautions to reach the library. My uncle drove in circles, ensuring we were not followed. Madison wore a hat and sunglasses, appearing nothing like the exhausted girl who had taught at the center. Kevin Liu waited in a study room, nervously tapping his pencil. He looked older than his 16 years, stress etched on his face. "I cannot stay long," he stated immediately. "My parents believe I am at SAT prep." "Kevin, we need to understand about the tests," Madison said gently. "The answer keys your parents purchased." His face crumpled. "I never desired them. I informed my parents I could pass on my own, but they claimed I was being naive, that everyone else was cheating, so I had to as well." "Would you be willing to inform the school board that?" my uncle asked. Kevin's hands trembled. "My parents would." "Not literally," I interjected. "But they planned my entire life around gaining admission to an Ivy League school. If this comes out, other students' lives were ruined. Children who studied honestly and failed because the curve was distorted by cheaters." Kevin nodded miserably. "I know. I think about it every day. There is this girl in my physics class, Maria Santos. She is brilliant, far more intelligent than me. But she attends community college now because she could not afford test preparation and did not possess the answers. So help us rectify it," Madison urged. Kevin remained silent for a long moment. "Then, there are others. Students who feel guilty. We do not discuss it, but I can discern it in their faces. Perhaps I could reach out to them." We provided Kevin with a secure method to contact us and departed separately. As we drove home, I felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. We were constructing something, but my parents were powerful and desperate. That night proved how desperate. My uncle's phone rang at 3 a.m. Madison's name appeared on the screen, but it was my mother's voice that came through. "Hello, brother-in-law. I have Madison here. She has decided she wants to come home." "Let me speak to her," my uncle demanded. "Oh, she is resting." Poor thing was so bewildered, appearing at our door in the middle of the night. "But do not worry, we will take good care of her." The line went dead. My uncle immediately contacted the police, but my parents were too cunning. When officers arrived at their house, they produced Madison, who willingly informed them she had returned home voluntarily. The bruise on her wrist was concealed under long sleeves. "She is 17, my father smoothly informed the officers. "We are her legal guardians. Thank you for checking, but this is a family matter." The police were powerless. Madison was a minor, and she had stated she wished to be there. We knew she had been threatened or manipulated, but proving it was another matter. My uncle paced his living room furious. "We need to get her out of there. They will be watching her constantly now. And they still have 3 days to make her sign those partnership papers," I added. We called Mrs. Rodriguez. "Can you check on Madison when you clean tonight?" "I will try," she promised. "But they have been acting strangely, shredding documents, moving files." The next day, Kevin Liu came through. He had quietly contacted other students who had used answer keys. 3 were willing to speak anonymously to the school board. It was not much, but it was something. Then Mrs. Rodriguez called with urgent news. "Tonight, they are planning to empty the safe tonight and move everything to a lawyer's office. If you desire those files, it must be now." My uncle looked at me. "It is too dangerous. If they apprehend you, they will not," I asserted. "I know that center better than anyone. Every hiding spot, every creaky floorboard. Madison and I practically resided there." He wished to refuse, but we both knew I was correct. I was the only one who could navigate the center in the dark. That night, Mrs. Rodriguez left a side window unlocked. I slipped in while my uncle waited in the car, prepared to summon assistance if needed. The familiar scent of the center enveloped me. Textbooks and coffee, and the expensive air freshener my mother insisted upon. I avoided the new cameras, adhering to routes Madison and I had used when we would secretly grab snacks during long tutoring nights. The safe rested in my parents' office, appearing innocuous. The combination Mrs. Rodriguez provided worked. Inside were stacks of documents, far more than we had imagined. Test booklets, payment ledgers, even recordings of conversations with wealthy parents. I crammed everything into my backpack, my hands trembling as I closed the safe. I heard a sound that froze my blood. The front door opening. My mother's voice carried through the center. "I know someone is here." The silent alarm triggered when the safe opened. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. She was bluffing, there was no alarm. But she had guessed someone would come for the files. "Madison told us everything," my mother continued, her heels clicking on the floor. "About the flash drive, about your uncle's little investigation. Did you truly believe you could outsmart us?" I held my breath, calculating my escape route. The window I had entered through was too distant, but there was another way. Through the teaching rooms to the emergency exit. "Come out now and we can discuss this like a family," my mother stated. "Otherwise, I will have to call the police, report a break-in. You know how that will appear." I moved silently through the familiar rooms where Madison and I had spent countless hours. Each step felt like both a betrayal and a liberation. My mother's footsteps drew closer. "I am disappointed in you. After everything we have done, the opportunities we provided." I reached the emergency exit and pushed. An alarm blared, a real one this time. I ran, backpack bouncing, as my mother's shouts faded behind me. My uncle had the car running. We sped away as sirens approached. My hands shook as I showed him the files. "This is it," he breathed. "This is everything we require." But our triumph was short-lived. When we arrived home, Madison was there. She sat on our porch, a suitcase beside her, her face streaked with tears. "They expelled me," she explained. "When the alarm sounded, they knew I had informed you about the files." Father declared, "I am no longer their daughter." I embraced her tightly, feeling her tremble. "You are safe now. That is what matters." "I grabbed these on my way out," she said, opening her suitcase. More documents spilled out. Personal records, bank statements, even photographs of my parents with various officials. "They had files on everyone," Madison elaborated. "Blackmail material. That is how they kept people silent." My uncle examined everything, his expression grim. "This extends deeper than we initially thought. They were not merely selling test answers. They were constructing a network of influence." We spent the remainder of the night organizing evidence. By dawn, we possessed a comprehensive case, but we also faced a dilemma. "The school board meeting is tomorrow," my uncle stated. "Your parents know we have this. They will attempt to stop us." As if on cue, his phone rang. A lawyer claiming to represent my parents, offering a deal. They would leave town, close the center, if we destroyed the evidence and remained silent. "No deal," my uncle stated firmly. The lawyer's tone turned threatening. "My clients possess resources. They can make life very difficult for you and the girls." "Let them try," my uncle replied and hung up. But the threats were not hollow. That afternoon, my uncle received notice that his business was being audited. Madison's college acceptance was suddenly under review. My school called, stating there were concerns about my enrollment. "They are attempting to pressure us," my uncle observed. "But we cannot retreat now." Kevin Liu called with disheartening news. 2 of the students who had agreed to testify had changed their minds after their parents received menacing letters. Only one remained willing to speak. "We need more voices," Madison urged. "What about the teachers? The ones who actually work at schools these children gained admission to with fraudulent scores." It was a sound idea. My uncle began making calls to admissions officers, teachers who had noticed students struggling despite perfect entrance scores. Slowly, a pattern emerged. That night, sleep eluded us. Tomorrow's school board meeting would determine everything. My parents would be present with their lawyers and their threats. But we had truth on our side. Madison sat beside me, reviewing her old teaching materials. "Remember this?" She held up a lesson plan she had created when she was 14. I was so proud of it. "You were a superior educator to most adults," I commented. She smiled sadly. "I love teaching, just not the way they compelled us to do it." "Perhaps you can teach again," I suggested. "The correct way this time." "Perhaps," she replied. "After all this is concluded." My uncle joined us, carrying hot chocolate. "Whatever transpires tomorrow, I am proud of you both. It requires courage to confront family." "They ceased being family the day they prioritized money over us," Madison stated quietly. I thought about all the students who had been defrauded, all the dreams shattered for financial gain. Tomorrow we would finally have our opportunity to set things right. As dawn approached, we reviewed our presentation one last time. We possessed documents, testimonies, evidence of years of deception. But would it be sufficient? "Your parents will fight dirty," my uncle cautioned. "They will attack your credibility, claim you are disturbed children fabricating stories. Then we will show them the truth, Madison declared, her voice steady. Every document, every receipt, every ruined life. The phone rang. It was Mrs. Rodriguez, her voice urgent. They are at the center, incinerating papers in the parking lot, destroying everything they could not relocate. We exchanged glances. They were becoming desperate, which made them dangerous. It does not matter, I stated. We have copies of everything important. But I wondered what else they might attempt, how far they would go to safeguard their empire. As we prepared to depart for the meeting, Madison grasped my hand. Whatever happens, we did the right thing. I squeezed back. Together, my uncle loaded our evidence into the car. Boxes of documents, USB drives with scanned files, testimony recordings, everything we had collected over the past week. Ready? He inquired. Madison and I nodded. We were as ready as we would ever be. The drive to the district office felt both interminable and too swift. My stomach churned with apprehension but also resolve. This was our chance to expose everything. As we pulled into the parking lot, we saw them. My parents standing with their lawyer, appearing confident despite everything. My mother wore her finest suit, my father his most expensive watch, playing the role of successful educators to the very end. They saw us and my mother's face hardened. She whispered something to their lawyer, who smirked. They are going to resist, Madison commented. Let them, my uncle replied. We have truth on our side. We gathered our boxes and walked toward the building. Other families were arriving. Some we recognized as victims, others as perpetrators. The meeting that would alter everything was about to commence. As we reached the entrance, my mother called out, "Girls, let us talk. It does not have to be this way." We continued walking. You are making a mistake, my father added. Consider your futures. We are, Madison stated without turning around, for the first time in our lives. Inside, the meeting room was already filling. School board members sat at a long table, looking serious. The air crackled with tension. We found seats and began unpacking our evidence. Across the room, my parents did the same with their lawyer. The battle was about to begin. The head of the school board called for order. We are here to address serious allegations about academic fraud in our district. Let us commence. My uncle stood up. We possess evidence of a years-long scheme to sell test answers to wealthy families, destroying opportunities for honest students. And with that, the fight for justice began. Everything we had worked for, everything Madison had risked, culminated in this moment. The truth was about to emerge, and nothing would ever be the same. The school board chairwoman raised her hand for silence. These are grave allegations. We will hear from both sides, starting with the accusers. My uncle stepped forward with our first box of evidence. He produced payment ledgers, each entry meticulously documented. The board members leaned forward, scrutinizing the numbers. My mother stood up immediately. Those could be forgeries. Anyone with basic computer skills could create fake documents. But we had anticipated this. My uncle produced the original handwritten receipts, matching my mother's distinctive script. Several board members exchanged meaningful glances. My father attempted a different approach. He spoke about their years of service to the community, how they had assisted countless students in achieving their aspirations. His voice cracked with practiced emotion. Madison could no longer tolerate it. She stood up, hands trembling but voice clear. I delivered those answer keys every week for 3 years. I witnessed honest children fail while cheaters succeeded. She is clearly disturbed, my mother interjected smoothly. We have been attempting to get her help, but she refuses treatment. This entire charade is her plea for attention. I pulled out Mrs. Rodriguez's notebook. Her detailed observations, dates, times, overheard conversations. The cleaning woman they had ignored had documented everything. The board members passed the notebook around, their expressions growing darker with each page. One member looked directly at my parents. This is quite damning. My mother's lawyer finally spoke up, challenging the admissibility of stolen evidence. He threatened lawsuits against the board if they took action based on illegally obtained documents. That is when Kevin Liu entered the room. He looked terrified but determined. Behind him, 2 other students followed. They had changed their minds about remaining silent. Kevin's testimony was devastating. He described the pressure, the guilt, the way success felt hollow when built on falsehoods. The other students nodded, adding their own experiences. My father's face had gone from purple to white. He kept glancing at the door, as if he wished to flee. My mother maintained her composure, but her hands gripped the table edge. The board called for a recess. We huddled together, knowing this was far from over. My parents and their lawyer were deep in conversation, likely planning their next move. When we reconvened, my mother had a new strategy. She produced her own documents, psychological evaluation suggesting I had oppositional defiant disorder and Madison suffered from delusional episodes. "We have been protecting our daughter's privacy," she stated sadly, "but clearly they require more assistance than we can provide." Madison laughed, sharp and bitter. "Those evaluations were performed by Dr. Harrison. Check his son's test scores. Perfect marks after failing practice exams." The accusation hung in the air. My mother's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing panic underneath. She had just implicated another family in the scheme. My uncle presented bank records next. Deposits matching the payment ledger amounts, always made within days of test dates. The money trail was undeniable. My father's lawyer attempted to explain them away as legitimate tutoring fees, but the amounts were astronomical. No tutoring service charged $50,000 for a single session. Then came the photographs Madison had retrieved. Pictures of my parents with various officials at private dinners, on golf courses, at exclusive resorts. Nothing explicitly incriminating, but the pattern was clear. The board members were taking notes now, no longer concealing their concern. The chairwoman asked my parents directly if they had sold test answers. "Absolutely not," my mother stated firmly, but her voice had lost its confident edge. Mrs. Rodriguez arrived during the afternoon session. She had been afraid to come earlier, worried about retaliation, but seeing Madison and me there gave her courage. Her testimony was quiet but powerful. She described watching my parents count cash, hearing them joke about foolish parents paying for intelligent children, seeing Madison weep in empty classrooms. My mother attempted to discredit her, calling her a disgruntled employee with a grudge. But Mrs. Rodriguez had brought Rose's rejection letter, her daughter's perfect grades, the practice test showing she should have passed. The human cost was becoming tangible. This was not just about money or test scores. It was about dreams shattered, future stolen, children used as instruments. More families began arriving. Word had spread during the lunch break. Parents whose children had mysteriously failed. Students who had worked honestly and lost opportunities. The room filled with anger and sorrow. My parents' lawyer kept objecting, demanding order, threatening everyone with lawsuits. But the board had heard enough. They called for a vote on immediate suspension of the tutoring center's license. My mother stood up, desperation breaking through. "You cannot do this. We have built this center over 20 years. You will destroy everything." "You destroyed it yourselves," the chairwoman replied coldly. The vote was unanimous. The center would be shut down immediately, pending full investigation. My parents' empire had crumbled in a single afternoon, but they were not finished. As families filed out, my father grabbed my arm. His grip was painful, desperate. "You have ruined us. Your own parents." My uncle intervened, pulling me away. "Do not touch her again." My mother was on her phone, likely calling in favors, attempting to salvage something. But the paying families were already distancing themselves, fearful of association. We drove home in exhausted silence. Madison stared out the window, processing what had just occurred. Years of abuse, manipulation, and crime had finally been exposed. That evening, my parents made one last attempt. They appeared at my uncle's house, not with lawyers or threats, but with tears. My mother actually wept, begging for forgiveness, promising to change. "We will get help," she sobbed. "We will make amends. Just do not let them prosecute us. Think of our reputation, our future." Madison looked at them with hollow eyes. "You never considered our futures, only your own." My father tried appealing to family loyalty, blood ties, shared memories. But what memories did we share? Years of exhaustion, manipulation, being used as props in their scheme. My uncle instructed them to leave. When they refused, he threatened to call the police. They finally departed, but not before my mother whispered that we would regret this. The subsequent days were a blur of activity. Schools initiated investigations into students who had utilized the service. Some families quietly withdrew their children rather than face scrutiny. The honest families who had been defrauded formed a support group. They shared resources, assisted each other in navigating appeals processes, celebrated minor victories as their children received second chances. Madison and I provided statements to school officials. We presented evidence, answered questions, relived painful memories. But with each recounting, the burden lifted slightly. My parents attempted damage control. They hired a public relations firm, claimed they were victims of a misunderstanding. But the evidence was too overwhelming. Their wealthy acquaintances abandoned them. Within a week, the tutoring center was deserted. The sign was removed, windows boarded. The place where Madison and I had spent our childhoods became a hollow shell. Kevin Liu's family was enraged with him for testifying, but he stated it was worthwhile. He could finally sleep without guilt, focus on learning rather than cheating. Mrs. Rodriguez found a superior position with a family who treated her with respect. Rosa received a second opportunity at the entrance examination, passing on her own merit. Sometimes justice arrives in small victories. My parents' lawyer negotiated a settlement to avoid criminal charges. They would pay restitution to affected families, surrender their education licenses, and agree to oversight of their finances. The money would not undo the harm, but it provided some relief. Some families utilized it for legitimate tutoring, others for therapy. The healing process would require time. Madison decided to take a gap year before college. She needed to discover who she was without our parents' influence. She volunteered at a literacy center, teaching children who genuinely desired to learn. Her eyes regained their sparkle. I returned to school full-time, no longer exhausted from late-night tutoring sessions. My grades improved when I could truly concentrate on my own education. My uncle became our legal guardian without contest. My parents knew fighting would only expose more of their transgressions. They signed the papers in bitter silence. The house felt different now, somehow lighter, despite the challenges ahead. Madison and I could converse without fear, laugh without permission, exist without performing. Some nights were difficult. Madison still awoke in a panic, dreaming about delivering answer keys. I still flinched when phones rang early, anticipating punishment. But we had each other. We had my uncle. We had truth on our side. The tutoring center was closed, the scheme exposed, and we were free. My parents relocated across town, their reputation in ruins. They attempted to start anew, but word spread. The educational community possesses a long memory for betrayal. Madison and I occasionally saw them at grocery stores or restaurants. They would stare with mixtures of anger and regret. We would simply walk away. They had forfeited the right to our attention. The school board implemented new oversight measures. Tutoring centers faced stricter regulations. Standardized test security improved. Minor alterations but meaningful ones. Some paying families faced consequences. A few students were expelled, others had achievements revoked. The ripple effects continued long after the initial exposure. But for Madison and me, life slowly normalized. We consumed regular meals, slept proper hours, pursued our own interests. The simple freedoms felt revolutionary. Madison discovered she loved teaching when it was not coerced. She tutored struggling students for free, helping them comprehend rather than cheat. Her eyes regained their vibrancy. I joined the drama club, something I had never had time for previously. Pretending on stage felt different than pretending in life. Here the performance was honest. My uncle never sought to replace our parents. He simply provided stability, support, and unconditional affection. He demonstrated what family should genuinely signify. The investigation concluded 6 months later. The full scope was staggering. Hundreds of students over a decade, millions in payments, lives altered by fraud. My parents received substantial fines and community service. They avoided incarceration but lost everything else. Their designer clothing and luxury automobiles were sold to pay restitution. Madison turned 18 quietly. No partnership papers to sign, no crimes to inherit. Just a small celebration with my uncle and me, a birthday finally her own. We never fully reconciled with our parents. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. But we found peace in moving forward without them. Years later, Madison became a teacher. A genuine one who cared about students' development, rather than their parents' wallets. She recognized the indicators of subdued children and intervened when she could. I pursued journalism, drawn to uncovering truth and holding power accountable. My childhood had taught me to see through pretenses and question authority. My uncle walked Madison down the aisle at her wedding. My father was not invited. My mother sent a card that went straight into the trash. Some choices have permanent repercussions. The tutoring center building was eventually renovated into a community center. Where falsehoods once flourished, truth and genuine learning took root. Felt like poetic justice. Madison had children who were permitted to be children. No forced instruction, no exploitation, just a normal childhood with its appropriate balance of learning and recreation. I sometimes drove past our old house. New families resided there now, unaware of its history. The home theater where I had experienced my only respite was probably filled with joyful memories for someone else. My parents aged poorly, their bitterness consuming them. They never accepted responsibility, always blaming us for their downfall. But their opinions had long ceased to matter. The students who had benefited from the scheme had mixed outcomes. Some faltered without stolen advantages. Others worked harder to prove themselves. Kevin Liu became a doctor through honest effort. Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter, Rosa, became the doctor she had dreamed of being. She sent us graduation announcements, thanking us for affording her a fair chance. Those moments made everything worthwhile. Madison and I remained close despite residing in different cities. We converse weekly, sharing ordinary problems and joys. Our bond, forged in survival, had evolved into genuine friendship. My uncle lived to see us both established and content. When he passed, we mourned the man who had rescued us when saving us had cost him so much. He had been our true parent. The scheme felt like ancient history now, though its lessons endured. We had learned about integrity, courage, and the cost of truth. We had paid that price gladly. Looking forward, not back, became our guiding principle. The past had shaped us but did not define us. We were more than our parents' crimes, more than childhood trauma. Madison kept one photograph from the center. Her first real lesson plan, created with affection rather than obligation. It reminded her why she had become a teacher. I kept Madison's note from the flash drive. Her desperate attempt to protect me had initiated our journey to freedom. It reminded me that courage manifests in many forms. Our narrative was not unique. Countless children suffer under parents who exploit them for gain. But survival is attainable and thriving follows. The tutoring center scandal became a cautionary tale in educational circles. Policies changed, oversight increased. Small victories in an imperfect system, but victories nonetheless. Madison and I constructed lives of meaning and authenticity. We chose professions that aided others, relationships founded on trust, futures we controlled, the antithesis of everything we had known.